AITA for canceling a restaurant dinner for two after finding out my boyfriend invited his entire family without asking me. After that, he wanted me to pay for meals I didn't even eat. I am feeling really overwhelmed right now and honestly just need to vent because I am starting to question if I really did overreact, even though deep down I do not think I did. For context, I am 24 years old and have been dating Alex, who is 26, for almost a year now. Things have been good for the most part, but lately we have both been super busy with work and other obligations. It feels like we barely get quality time together anymore. So for the past few weeks, I had been talking about how much I wanted us to just have one nice evening, just the two of us, something a little special. There is this restaurant in the city I had been dying to try, one of those places that is a little fancier, a little more expensive, but totally worth it for a special occasion. Alex agreed that it was a good idea and I was genuinely so excited. I made the reservation myself a couple of weeks in advance to make sure we would get a good table. I even bought a new dress for the occasion because I wanted to feel really pretty and just celebrate us. I was picturing a cozy, romantic night where we could reconnect without the distractions of everyday life, just good food, maybe a bottle of wine, and time to actually talk and be present with each other. Fast forward to the day of the dinner. I spent the afternoon getting ready. I did my hair, makeup, everything. I wanted the night to feel special. About 3 hours before the reservation, Alex calls me and in the most casual way imaginable says, "Oh, by the way, my parents, my sister and brother, and even my aunt and uncle are going to be there tonight too." I swear I just stood there frozen for a second because I genuinely thought he was joking. But no, he was completely serious. He said it like it was no big deal at all, like it was perfectly normal to turn what was supposed to be a romantic date into a mini family reunion. I asked him why he would invite his entire extended family to what was supposed to be our night. He kind of brushed it off and said something along the lines of how his family really wanted to see me, that it was important for him to have me be part of these moments, and that family is everything to him. He made it sound like I should be honored that he wanted me there with them. I could feel this knot forming in my stomach because it was not just that he invited them, it was that he never even asked me if I was okay with it. He just decided unilaterally, like my opinion or feelings about it did not even matter. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I had been looking forward to this night for weeks. I had built it up in my head as something just for us, something we really needed after being so busy and disconnected. Instead, I was now supposed to spend the evening making small talk with his aunt and uncle, trying to impress his parents, smiling through forced conversations, probably being judged on everything from what I wore to how I held my fork. It completely shattered the entire vibe I had been so excited about. I told Alex that I was not going. I said this was supposed to be our special night and now it was just a camp dinner with a dozen people I barely knew. He got defensive immediately, saying I was overreacting and being selfish, that family should come first, and that he thought I would be happy to spend time with them. I tried explaining that it was not about not wanting to meet his family. I had met them before, briefly, and it had been fine. It was about the principle of the thing. About the fact that he made a major change to plans we had made together without even considering how I would feel about it. He did not seem to get it. He kept insisting it was not a big deal. At that point, I just canceled the reservation altogether. I told him if he wanted to have dinner with his family, he could go right ahead, but I was not going to spend my night pretending I was fine with being ambushed like that. He tried calling me a few more times that evening, but honestly I was just so upset I could not even bring myself to answer. The worst part is now his entire family thinks I am this selfish, rude girlfriend who refused to spend time with them. Apparently he told them I bailed last minute without really explaining why, and now they all think I am immature and disrespectful. His mom even sent me this passive-aggressive text saying how she hopes I learn the importance of family someday. I cannot even express how hurtful that was to read. I have been sitting with all of this for a few days now and the more I replay it in my head, the more hurt I feel. It is not just about that one dinner. It is about the complete lack of respect for my feelings, about being sidelined and treated like an accessory rather than an equal partner in the relationship. I keep wondering if this is what I am signing up for long-term, being expected to just fall in line with whatever Alex or his family wants, even at the cost of my own happiness. Part of me feels guilty because I know family is important and I do not want to be that person who isolates their partner from their loved ones. But another part of me knows that setting boundaries and expecting respect for plans we made together is not selfish. It is basic decency. If the roles had been reversed and I had invited my entire family to a romantic dinner without asking him, I know he would have been upset too. I still do not know how I want to handle things from here. We have not really talked since it happened. I think he is waiting for me to apologize, but honestly I am not sure I want to. I miss the Alex who used to prioritize me and make me feel special. I do not know if that version of him still exists, or if he has always been this way and I am only now seeing it clearly. Update 1. After a few days of complete silence between us, where I honestly thought things might just quietly end, Alex finally reached out. He sent me a long text message saying that he had been thinking a lot about what happened, that he realized he had hurt me, and he really wanted to make things right. He said he understood that I had been looking forward to a special night for just the two of us and he regretted how things had turned out. He promised he wanted to make it up to me properly this time and suggested that we go out to dinner again, just the two of us, no surprises, no extra guests. He even told me that he had already booked a table at another nice restaurant, one that he thought I would love, and he said he wanted nothing more than to spend some quality time with me alone. He said he missed me, missed us, and that he wanted to show me how important I was to him. I hesitated. I reread that message a dozen times, feeling torn between wanting to believe him and feeling this deep, gnawing skepticism. Part of me thought that if he was making this effort, maybe he really did understand. Maybe he really was trying. I missed him too, as much as I hated to admit it. Against my better judgment, I replied and said I would come. I spent the afternoon getting ready, but there was a heaviness in my chest that I could not shake off. I kept telling myself to relax, that I was overthinking, that it was going to be fine. I put on a dress that made me feel beautiful but comfortable, trying to stay hopeful but guarded at the same time. When I arrived at the restaurant, the first thing I noticed was how full it looked through the windows. My heart skipped a beat, but I shook it off, telling myself that it was a popular place and it was Friday night. Of course it would be crowded. I walked in, scanning the room, trying to spot Alex. That is when my heart completely dropped into my stomach. Right there, in the middle of the dining room, was Alex, and his entire family. His parents, his sister, his brother, his aunt and uncle. They were all gathered around a large table, already deep into their meals, laughing, chatting, drinking wine. Plates of half-eaten food were scattered across the table, and, to my utter disbelief, even the desserts had already been served. Alex noticed me immediately. He stood up, smiling broadly like everything was totally normal, and waved at me enthusiastically to come over. I just stood frozen in the doorway, my face burning, my hands shaking, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from underneath me. A few heads turned to look at me, a few people at other tables giving me sympathetic or confused glances. I could feel tears threatening to spill over, and I fought them back with everything I had. I took one step back, then another. Alex started walking toward me, and in that moment I knew if I stayed 1 second longer, I was going to completely lose it in front of all those people. I turned around and walked straight out of the restaurant, heart pounding so hard it hurt, face burning with humiliation and anger. I got into my car and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. I felt so stupid for believing him. He had lied to me. He had deliberately set me up. Later, when I had calmed down enough to look at my phone, I saw a message from him. He said he did not tell me that his family would be there because he knew I would not come otherwise, and he really thought that once I saw everyone together, I would realize how nice it was to be part of the family. He actually tried to spin it like he had done this out of love, like betraying my trust was somehow a gesture of goodwill. I did not even have the energy to respond. I just blocked his number because anything I could have said would not have made a difference to someone who thought that kind of manipulation was acceptable. But then, just when I thought it could not possibly get worse, an hour later I received a Venmo notification. It was a request from Alex, for half the bill. Not just my share of what I would have eaten. No. It was for the dishes they had ordered for me. Dishes I never even touched, plates of food that had already been half devoured before I had even arrived. The note on the Venmo request said something like, "Your portion," as if I had sat there and enjoyed a full meal with them instead of running out in tears. I stared at that notification, blinking, trying to process the sheer audacity. I had not eaten a single bite. I had not even sat down. I had been humiliated, lied to, manipulated, and now I was being sent a bill for the privilege. It felt like a slap in the face, a final insult just to make sure I knew exactly how little my feelings were respected. This was too much. Update 2. The next morning, after an endless night of tossing and turning, lying in bed staring at the ceiling while my mind replayed every awful moment like a broken record, I woke up to find a massive text from Alex. My heart was pounding as I opened it, half expecting more defensiveness, more justifications. But it was different this time. His words poured across the screen, raw and messy in a way that almost felt real. He admitted to being a complete idiot, said he had been reckless and thoughtless, that he had let his immaturity and selfishness ruin something precious. He said he realized how much he had disrespected me, how deeply he had wounded me without even fully understanding the weight of his actions at the time. He told me he missed me, not just missed having a girlfriend, but missed me, the person, the connection, everything we had built together. He pleaded for a chance to make things right, promising it would be different, promising he would listen this time. He said he understood that I deserved better, and that he wanted to be better. He suggested that we meet at his house, just the two of us, in a quiet and private space where we could finally talk without interference, without drama, without any other people complicating it. Just us. He even said he would not push for anything, that he just wanted the chance to apologize properly and hear whatever I had to say. I sat there staring at my phone for what felt like forever, reading and rereading the message until the words blurred together. A part of me, the wounded, exhausted part, wanted to delete it and block him and be done with this entire painful chapter of my life. But there was another part too, stubborn and sentimental, a part that could still hear the echoes of all our good memories, late-night drives, spontaneous laughter, the way he used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. That part still cared, despite everything. That part wondered if it was foolish to not at least give closure a chance, if only for my own peace of mind. I agonized over it all day, swinging wildly between anger and hope, between fear and longing. I kept trying to listen to my gut, but my gut was twisted into so many knots that it was impossible to tell what it was saying anymore. By the time evening rolled around, I found myself grabbing my keys with shaking hands, telling myself that even if it was a mistake, at least it would be my decision. I needed to see it through, one way or another. As I pulled up outside his house, a strange, cautious hopefulness bubbled up inside me, fragile and tentative. The porch light was on, casting a soft, inviting glow across the front steps. The door was slightly ajar, almost like he was waiting for me, and when he appeared in the doorway with a nervous but genuine smile, for one brief second it felt like stepping into a memory of who we used to be. Inside, the house was warm and cozy. There was soft music playing low from a speaker somewhere, something acoustic and soothing. A couple of candles flickered on the coffee table, giving the living room a calm, almost intimate feel. It was so disarmingly normal that it caught me off guard. After the chaos and betrayal of the last few days, the simplicity of the moment was almost enough to lull me into forgetting. We sat down together on the couch, the familiar creak of the cushions beneath us, the easy way our bodies angled toward each other without thinking. For a while, it was genuinely nice. We started talking about all the ridiculous, funny things that had happened when we first met, the awful first date where everything went wrong, the time he tried to impress me with homemade pasta and nearly set his kitchen on fire. We laughed, real laughter that filled the space between us and, for a little while, smoothed over the cracks. Alex looked at me with such raw regret in his eyes, apologizing again, telling me how badly he wished he could take everything back, how he never wanted to make me feel unimportant or disrespected. He said it was the worst mistake of his life and that he understood if I could never forgive him, but that he had to at least try. Little by little, the walls I had spent days carefully building started to lower. I felt the anger, the bitterness, the grief beginning to soften around the edges. I found myself smiling more easily, remembering why I had fallen for him in the first place. Part of me started to wonder if maybe I had been too harsh, too quick to assume the worst. Relationships are messy, after all. People make mistakes. Maybe what mattered was the willingness to own up to them, to do better. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to believe that maybe there was still something here worth saving. And then, just as that fragile hope was taking root, just as I was beginning to feel the tiniest spark of trust returning, Alex suddenly shouted loudly, "Hey, you can leave." I froze, every muscle in my body locking up, my smile falling from my face like a mask dropped to the floor. I turned slowly toward the hallway, confusion and dread twisting together inside me, and that was when I saw them. His family. Every single one of them. His parents, his sister, his brother, his aunt and uncle. They started filing out of another room, a room that had clearly been just a few steps away from where we had been sitting, talking, laughing, sharing things that were meant to be private and sacred. They looked awkward, guilty, some of them smiling in this sheepish, uncomfortable way, others keeping their eyes downcast as if they knew just how wrong it was but could not bring themselves to acknowledge it. They shuffled past us like actors exiting a stage, trying to minimize the grotesque absurdity of the scene they had just been complicit in. It was like something out of a nightmare, so surreal that for a moment I actually thought I might be hallucinating. But it was real. They had been there the whole time. Listening. Watching. Judging. Turning one of the most vulnerable conversations of my life into some kind of twisted family spectacle. I sat there in stunned silence, the weight of the betrayal crushing down on me in slow, brutal waves. It became horrifyingly clear that this had never been about closure. It had never been about respect or understanding. It had been another setup, another manipulation, another moment where my trust, my dignity, my humanity had been treated like nothing more than a joke at my expense. I did not speak. I did not cry. I did not scream or lash out. Some deeper, quieter part of me simply broke, cleanly and completely. I felt it, the last thread snapping inside me, the final bit of hope shriveling up and blowing away like ash on the wind. Just at that moment I turned around and left. Update 3. The next morning, after everything that had happened, after everything that had been exposed and shattered the night before, I woke up with this overwhelming clarity in my chest. I realized I could not keep riding this endless roller coaster of hope and disappointment. If there was going to be anything left between us, it had to change completely. There could not be any more manipulation, any more tricks, any more pretending everything was fine when it clearly was not. I sent Alex a message that was short but firm. I told him that we needed to talk, seriously talk, and that it was time to set real, unshakable boundaries. I made it clear that if he was not willing to meet me halfway, to actually respect the relationship we were building instead of trying to control or stage manage it, then it was over. No more second chances. No more emotional bait-and-switch. It was going to be different, or it was going to be done. When I arrived at his place later that day, he looked genuinely broken. Not performative, not guilt-tripping, just broken. Like someone who finally realized he had been standing on a cliff's edge for a long time without ever looking down. His whole posture was different. No bravado, no charming smiles to hide behind. Just a kind of rawness that I had not seen in him before. We sat down across from each other, and for the first time, we really talked. Not just about the stupid incidents that had led us here, but about everything underneath them. About respect. About trust. About the fact that in a healthy relationship, you are supposed to be two individuals choosing to walk together, not one person absorbing into another's family, losing their sense of self just to keep the peace. I told him how deeply humiliated I had felt, how every stunt had chipped away at the sense of safety and intimacy that a relationship is supposed to protect, not violate. I told him that love without boundaries is not love at all, it is possession. To my absolute surprise, he listened. Not the kind of listening where someone is just waiting for their turn to talk, but real listening. He admitted that he had been so focused on pleasing everyone, his family, me, himself, that he had ended up betraying the very trust he claimed to value. He said he had never really thought about how suffocating it must feel to be constantly ambushed, constantly tested, constantly placed second to the comfort of others. Then, after this long, heavy silence between us, he suggested something that genuinely caught me off guard. He said he wanted to take me out to dinner, really this time, just the two of us, somewhere quiet and beautiful, the way we had originally planned. He said he wanted to rebuild from the ground up, if I would let him, starting with something as simple and sacred as a real date where we could just be ourselves again, without anyone else's interference. I agreed, cautiously, and over the next few days something unexpected happened. His family, each of them separately, reached out to apologize. Not just some half-hearted apology either, real ones. His sister sent me a long message saying she was ashamed of how they had handled everything and that she had no idea how invasive and hurtful it had been until she imagined herself in my position. His father called and, in his blunt but sincere way, told me that he respected me for standing my ground. Even his aunt and uncle, who I barely knew, sent a message acknowledging that they had overstepped. And then there was his mother. She asked to meet me for coffee, and although I was hesitant, I agreed. Sitting across from her at a small cafe, she admitted that she had been the one behind the whole mess. She confessed that she had been terrified that I would pull Alex away from the family, that he would disappear into a relationship and forget about them. It had not been about me personally, she said, but about her own fear of change, her own fear of losing the closeness they had always shared. She apologized, genuinely and without excuses, and said she realized now that clinging so tightly had only driven a wedge between everyone. It took time. Conversations were not always easy. Trust is not something you snap your fingers and rebuild overnight. But somehow, through all the wreckage, something started to shift. It was like all the walls that had been built up out of fear and control and resentment had finally crumbled, and for the first time, we could actually see each other clearly. When Alex and I finally went out to dinner, just the two of us, it felt different than anything we had shared before. It was not flashy or over the top. It was just us, sitting across from each other, sharing food, talking, laughing, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. There were no hidden agendas, no tension hanging heavy in the air, no sense that someone else's expectations were lurking just outside the room. It was simple, and in that simplicity, it was perfect. And you know what? Our relationship now is better than it has ever been. I am not idealizing it. I know better than to think that one good dinner erases all the hurt or that love alone is enough to fix deep-seated issues. But what we were able to build from that wreckage, the raw honesty, the painful but necessary boundaries, the respect that now frames everything we do, has become something real, something solid in a way that it never was before. It is not about perfection. It is about knowing that when problems come up, because they will come up, we have the foundation to deal with them honestly and with kindness instead of manipulation or fear. It is about knowing that I am with someone who chooses to respect me, not just when it is easy, but especially when it is hard. For the first time in a long time, I feel like we are building something worth holding on to. And this time, it is being built the right way.